Emily Rinkema lives and writes in northern Vermont. For her real job, she works as a district curriculum and instruction teacher, supporting and facilitating professional learning for teachers and administrators. She has written about education for years, but has now shifted almost entirely to writing fiction. Her stories have recently appeared in Smokelong Quarterly, Variant Lit, Flash Frog, Fictive Dream, Ghost Parachute, and Wigleaf, and she won the 2024 Cambridge Prize and the 2024 Lascaux Prize for Flash Fiction. She's been nominated for Best Short Fictions and the Pushcart Prize, but has never been published in or even had a tiered rejection from HAD. When not writing or working, she enjoys spending time with Bill, her husband, Chet, her dog, and Jack Reacher the cat. Thank you very much, Emily, for stopping by to the Corner booth. It's so great to have you here. And actually, we've never had this before, Art. We are interviewing Emily on a publishing day. 3 new pieces out in Flash Boulevard. Is that correct?
It is. I know. Good timing. Yes,
Yeah,
those came out this morning. Very exciting.
Gotta ask, when you have a publishing day, when something comes out, I was just thinking about this. Who is the first person that you send the link to?
Oh, that is such a good question. Well, it used to be my father before he died. He was always the first, a phone call or the link. It now is probably my Aunt Mimi is the one who gets the very first text. Kind of my biggest fan. So, right. Or my mother-in-law. If I don't mention my mother-in-law here, that'll be trouble. So Franny is likely an even bigger fan.
We're all going to be sending our links to Franny. Just
That's
text
right.
about our new works to Franny. We've got
to. Be perfect.
It's also very hard for me not to comment on each of the pieces that you have. Smokelong, Variant, Flash Frog. I mean, these are just fantastic lit mags. So congratulations. This is a great list.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that list.
The pieces that you had come out today in Flash Boulevard, I love seeing works in progress. I am a very, very big fan of having bands release songs that are sort of in that nascent stage. I have this 11-minute long track of Nirvana figuring out a song that would become one of the songs on one of their albums. And I love it when you get to see something from, the early stages to when it gets published. And I feel like a little bit like, oh, what an I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
2 of the 3 from this morning, I think, were in the Smokelong March group that we were in together, right? So 2 of those should be familiar. Yeah.
Yes.
That is a ringing endorsement for that workshop. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing. This could just become a big Smokelong advertisement if you'd like it to, like that. I mean, most of the stories I'm publishing started or were workshopped in Smokelong.
Well, I'd love to start there, not with the workshop itself, but really the work that came out of it. The 3 stories that were published together, I read them a few times this morning. And I just wanted to, first of all, they're fantastic. But I was trying to figure out what the sensation was that was sort of coming up when I would read them. And I think I've figured it out. It's almost as though these stories, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but I'm going to try it anyway. It's almost like they are stories that are preludes to tragedy or preludes to let's say tragedy. And it's almost like that moment when you sort of know that something bad is about to happen and you take in a deep breath. And it's that not being able to sort of let go of that breath because as soon as you do, you know that the world's going to collapse on your head. That's what those stories felt like to me. Is that a fair assessment?
I just wrote, absolutely. I just wrote down Prelude to Tragedy. I think if I ever write a memoir, that might be the title of it right there.
Ooh,
I hadn't thought about it that way, but I think you're absolutely right. It's that like the stopping before, it's kind of anticipatory, right? So that like we're going to stop before we actually describe the bad thing that happened. I think that's one of the things I love about Flash is the actual event is not often written about. That's probably not true, actually. So you can scratch that. But in some cases, I think that's one of the things I love about Flash is what's not there is as important, if not more important, than what is there.
Yeah, I've noticed it when really good television or really good movie writing kind of leads you to something that you can predict or anticipate. This bad thing is going to happen, but then they don't show it to you. And the reason they don't show it to you is probably because if they showed it to you, it would be kind of boring or elective
Yeah.
because you already know what's going to happen. I'm actually thinking of The White Lotus. Have you seen the most recent season of The
You know
White
what? I
Lotus?
think I'm the only person in the world who hasn't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a moment.
It's me. Me as well.
Well, then,
Okay.
so I'm speaking to the rest of the world who has
That's
actually.
right.
No, but there's a
Who
moment.
are all listening right now.
Exactly. There's a moment in the last episode of the most recent season where it does that sort of thing. Like, you know what's coming, and it just stops the story right before that thing happens because you don't need to see it. You know, you can play it forward in your head. So yeah, very similar.
Yeah, and I think it's more powerful. And sometimes when you, like, as a reader, I can imagine whatever it is, the tragedy, the event, like through my own lens. Whereas if it's written down on the paper, like, it's no longer through my brain, right?
Yeah.
I'm now going to see it the way someone else is writing it.
No, that's a great point. They do that in horror as well. Like, horror movies will,
Yeah.
the anticipation of, or the dread is more powerful than seeing the thing do the gory thing.
You know, sort of along those same lines, I remember something they used to try to tell us when we were learning narrative improv. If you can try and construct a story and you can do it in such a way that the audience gets to the end a millisecond before you do, that's going to have so much more emotional impact for the audience, and it just heightens it. Of course, it's improv theater, so it's usually involving a clown and like President Lincoln, but like, you know, that's something that I've always carried with me to try and do. I've fallen short every single time I've tried it, but it's that sort of like, if you can just, it just enhances that emotional impact
Yeah.
of the end. If you can get the audience there just before you pull the string.
This is going to be like dropping literary magazine stuff. In the New Yorker years ago, again, this might be completely wrong. I might be making this up, but there was an article about when you know the ending of a novel or a movie, like, so if someone ruins it for you before you go, your enjoyment is actually greater when you read it or watch it. And so, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, don't ruin the book for me by telling me what happens. But people who actually read the ending or are told what happens at the end had greater enjoyment. I have no idea how they measure that, by the way. Like, what does that experiment look like? But
that's so strange, because I remember when I'm a giant Twin Peaks fan more than anything else, and when the return came out in 2017, I put people on lockdown. Like, I had a person that just texted me. They texted me one name after they saw the episode, but before I saw it, and I was like, "You're blocked. Sorry, nope, no, I want to have it." So it's fascinating to me that perhaps it would have increased my enjoyment.
Well, I think you pay attention differently, right? So if you know the ending, right? So like, and I think sometimes in Flash, you'll see people who do that really well with the title. And I can't come up with an example right now, but the title will tell the ending. You know, like, so-and-so dies in this story. And then you're watching for that, right? You're looking for those clues. So there's an element, I think, of that kind of, I know what's going to happen. So I've got that, like, the excitement or the anticipation for that. And look at how smart I am because I'm picking up these clues.
It does create a circumstance where the reader is trying to recognize the pattern or see how it kind of turns out. The one story I'm thinking of is by an Argentinian writer. I can't remember his name, but it's a story called "There's a Man in the Habit of Hitting Me on the Head with an Umbrella." And and it's a fantastic story, but the whole time you're trying to figure out why, because it starts off with that very clear thing that's occurring, and it's on repeat, and you're like, why is this happening? And it makes you kind of look. You know, who was it? I think it was Nabokov who said, real reading is rereading. And so the idea that you sort of know what the plot is going to unfold, but now that I don't have to worry about absorbing what's happening or what's going to happen, I can watch how it happens and maybe gain more enjoyment.
Yeah, and probably as writers, right? Like, there's that element of the craft piece that comes in then. Like, how is the author doing this?
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is inside baseball.
Too.
Yeah, I mean, I love that stuff, and it sounds like you do as well. But I wonder how many readers. I hope all of them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
we were just talking about the pieces that came out today in Flash Boulevard, and then how we saw early versions of that in Smoke Lung. How can we talk a little bit about your process? We don't want to,
Sure.
give away all the magician's tricks, but what is your process like when you first? We actually just did an episode on prompts, so maybe we should start there. What is your relationship with prompts? Is it something that you have used a lot? Is it kind of something it's 50-50, or is it just kind of whatever gets you going to get that piece rolling?
Yeah, I really like prompts actually. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I have no discipline at all. That's been my whole life. Discipline is not something that I'm skilled at. So I have to force discipline to write. I'm not the kind of writer who can say, I'm going to get up every morning and write for 20 minutes or an hour, or,
Yeah.
set aside a time at
Yeah.
night. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And so when I like having prompts that are kind of external prompts, that I'm also a rule follower. So when I have those prompts and I know that I'm supposed to be writing a story or a draft based on that prompt, I do it. So I end up having this sort of, self-imposed external discipline. And so it doesn't work if I try to just give myself prompts. Like I've tried that before, and it absolutely
Yeah.
doesn't work. It doesn't feel real, I guess. So that's why, like, as much as I can, I take, well, ever since I started Smoke Long in 2023, I think was my first Smoke Long summer, I haven't stopped. So that's pretty much constant prompts every week, and then sometimes every day.
The March Micro Marathon was my first Smoke Long workshop. So like I'm very, 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 very new to it. And Art and I were just talking about, I wasn't a very big prompt person before, just because I thought, let's just live life and find out what brings the first sentence to me. But it kind of felt like it was really great to be inspired for all of these different pieces that came out for me. And, I'd say like a good solid percentage of them are things that I would really want to work on again and hope to get out there. But it also became the point where I know, you just mentioned that you've been doing it since 2023. And I know that doesn't mean that you've been getting a prompt every day, just based on the structure of Smoke Long. But after that first month, I was sort of like, wow, I need to take time back to there were pieces that I forgot about.
Yeah.
Because there was so much new material coming out, and I loved having that. What is it that for you that sort of, what triggers the response in you to say that's a piece versus one that you're like, versus no, that's got to go directly in the can?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm gonna circle back to the prompt thing for a second, and then circle around and answer that question. So remind me if I don't get to that second circle. The prompts help me start, and then I think, as we probably saw in the March prompts, the stuff that I actually then post may no longer be directly connected to the prompt. So, and you'll see a lot of people will post something and say this started connected to the prompt, but it ended completely, in a different direction. So I think for me, the prompts get me started, and then the story goes where the story goes, and whether or not it sticks to the prompt becomes not important, right? So I don't feel beholden to the prompt once I start writing, for the most part, unless it's like a competition where the prompt is like required or something.
Right.
Okay, your second part of that question was, how do I know if something is crap or is worth continuing on with? Sometimes I don't know, which is kind of troublesome. And then I, end up submitting something, and then I read it the next morning and go, shit, what did I do? I don't know. I think I've learned to trust myself a little bit more the more I'm writing. Like I look back at some stuff. I've been writing for a long time, but it really hasn't been until the last probably 2 years that I've been writing. Like it's all I want to do now. Prior to that, my real job got in the way. And frankly,
Right.
my real job should probably be getting in the way now more than it is. But so yeah, I think I've just gotten better and better where I can kind of feel something.
Yeah.
Like here's one of the challenges I'm having right now. This may sound ridiculous, and if it does, cut it, please. But that like I'm a pretty good writer just in terms of like the mechanics. So often my first drafts will come out like they're smooth and they're complete, and like there's a story and there's a character and it's worded and it's worded well. It's and I can get lulled into a sense of that being a good story. I don't know if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. Like, and I sort of wish sometimes that my first drafts were rougher because then that would
Right.
force me to have to go back in. But it comes out, and so now I need to go back in and challenge myself to say, like, how many layers does this story have? Is this just a one note story, which has been part of the challenge? And if it is,
Wait.
then how do I add notes or layers?
Wait. Whoa. You can have more than
Whoa.
one note in a story? Wait.
Yeah. Every once
Wait
in
a
a
minute.
while.
If you want your stories to be rougher, I think just add scotch. I think that'll pretty much do it.
Yeah. Honestly, I did. My husband suggested that I actually have an old fashioned before I do this because
Nice.
he's like, it'll just relax you. But I did not. I'm coming in completely sober.
One of the problems that I've been having is that I'll have a draft that I feel I'm like, wow, this feels pretty good. Probably not as quite smooth, I think, as you said. I don't have the mechanics down, I feel, but there will be something and I'm like, wow, this feels really, really decent. And I'll pass it along to my partner and she'll say, I really like this. And then about a week later, after working it, overworking it, she'll be like, you did it again.
Yeah, you killed it.
Yeah. And then Art will say, you've really overworked this. It's been 20 years on this piece, buddy. Come on.
Yeah.
Well,
The overworking, that's legit. The overworking thing, I do that a lot. And then I hate it.
Yeah.
Like I get to the point where I don't even like it anymore. I've just spent too much time with it.
Yeah, I think I have you all beat, though, because in one of the past refills, I came clean. I have a story I've been tinkering with for 28 years. And I said, what am I doing? Like, at some point, are you, they say that
it's like, but it's Art's own Guns N' Roses Chinese democracy.
I don't understand what that means, but yes, sure.
Just gonna try and throw in a real deep cut for those out there, those GNR fans out there.
That's right.
Yeah, some guy in his mother's basement just laughed really hard at that.
And that guy's me. Hey, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, at some point we are writing for ourselves, so. Well, Emily, let's dig into your actual process. So you said that you have very little discipline, which is commendable for you to confess that here in the corner booth. Thank you. But clearly you have more than you need because you are getting published regularly. You're producing high quality work. Tell us about your approach to writing. What is it that really drives you to start stories to begin with? What is that coal fire in your belly that's pushing that train down the tracks?
I don't know if it's a coal fire in my belly. What's funny, I've written kind of up until like 2 years ago when I just kind of became obsessed with Flash. I would write here and there in spurts, and it would only be when I was interested in it. So I could go like years without really writing anything. And then for some reason, I would all of a sudden have something to write about, right? So then I'd get inspired in that way. I think now, so if we just take kind of this new chapter, this Flash chapter, I think it's probably therapy, right? Like I'm working through lots of shit in a very public way and calling it fiction. And the majority of it is fiction, but there's like seeds of things that I think I just keep chewing on. And I think the more the world implodes, the more I just feel compelled to figure out a little bit more about who I am and my role in the world, and why we're all here. Wow, that was big.
No,
That was deep.
yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
I've often wondered if, if we didn't have Prague in '68, if Milan Kundera sort of doesn't turn into Milan Kundera.
Yeah.
The fact that we could have lived in a very calm, peaceful world, I don't know that great art arrives from a calm and peaceful setting. So it's really encouraging to hear you say that you're kind of working out things from your past. I think that's a really good use of fiction, and that there are kernels of truth, seeds of truth, but it's not creative nonfiction. You're taking something and turning it into something more than what it started from, which is fantastic. So, I mean, congratulations.
Thank you. You're going to probably cut this, but in college, I carried around a copy of Milan Kundera's Unbearable Lightness of Being for like an entire year.
Nice.
Like mostly publicly, like I'm going to read this on a bus, and now I'm going to read it on an airplane. And
was it performance art? Like, look, I'm
yes,
reading it.
Very much so. I loved it, but I wanted everyone to know I read it and loved it. Like it was this strange thing. I think I told everybody about it that year.
There was a short story that touched me that way, but I can't remember the name of it. It was I'm sure you'll know it. The story was about this couple on a holiday, and they stopped for gas at the beginning of the story. And for some reason, they started to role play as if they were strangers. And it was this playful, kind of sexy, beginning, but it ultimately turned into this game that they couldn't stop playing, and it revealed fractures in their relationship. And by the end of it, their relationship had really crumbled. And like the last line of the story was, and there were still 2 weeks left in the vacation or something like that. And they're like, oh my God. It was amazing. And look, I just blew the ending for you, but now you can go back.
You did that. Now I'm going to enjoy it more.
That's right. I just increased your value. But no, it's a fantastic story. I'll have to look up the name of it, but it was
great. Look that up. Yeah, let me know. I'd like to read that.
I'm blocking you, Art. You can't tell me more of these endings. I can't do this anymore. We also love talking about the sort of management of writing and how everything on the back end works. Mm-hmm. What is your sort of like workstation like? Does it change? Are you at the window one day, out in the back the other? How do you keep your mind from, getting too many pieces in your head at the same time, if you can, etc.?
Yeah. Those are all great questions. I'm sitting in my little writing room right now, which we just built last summer we just took a part of our living room and put a wall up, and now I have this tiny little writing room, which I love. And so that's kind of where I love it. It's been a really great place for me this last year. Like I come in here and really can focus. I actually like having lots of pieces in my head at the same time. So I don't think I prevent that. In fact, I have a hard time getting like super lost in one thing at a time. I like to have like tabs up and kind of go back and forth and, kind of cleanse my palette maybe a little bit. Like I'm working on something a little too much, so I pop over to something else that I want to work on a little. And in terms of the management, I'm getting better at that. I have been such a disaster at that for a long time. So I have a spreadsheet. That's been helpful. And it has multiple tabs. I keep adding tabs, which is less helpful. And so I try to put all my drafts in one tab. And then when I submit something, I have, I list the story, the date I submitted it, any other, details about that. That's been helpful because now that I'm doing a lot more submitting in the last year or so, just being able to keep track of that and not embarrass myself by, submitting the same story to the same journal after they've rejected me. Hypothetically.
Yeah. You mentioned in your bio had and art. Art and I have talked a long time about my desire. I've made it not fun. I was like, I just love this lit mag so much. I want to be in the cool club. Is how I was putting it. In years and years and years. But you talk about submitting the same story. I haven't done that yet, but I have had, as the kids say, zero chill so many times with Had that I know that they have had themed calls, and I'm just like, I don't even care. I got it in under the deadline. Do I have it? There we go. So yeah, it's
that's
nice
a
to have that.
game. Yeah, last time I thought I uploaded my tax returns. Like I just was trying to work so fast and I had no idea what was happening. And I was terrified to go back in because I actually had my tax document that I had downloaded, and then I was uploading the story, but you don't have any time to double check anything.
Sure.
So it was terrifying. It might have actually, maybe it would have been accepted.
That's the thing. Your tax return, they'd have been like, this is a beautiful piece. I love it. Here you go. Emily Rinkema with 2023 taxes.
That's right. We can see where it ends.
What an ending, yes.
Her story, adjusted gross income, was riveting.
Exactly. Had is one of my white whales. I shouldn't say that because that makes it sound like I've been hunting it for a long time, but there's really a couple of journals that I just keep getting rejected from, and I keep swallowing my pride and trying again and again and again.
Yes. There was I just remember, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, where I had a piece and I was like, this is it. This is the one. This is it. And I missed the submission window because I was like, I thought that with Submittable, when you hit the submit button and you can fill out the upload form, I thought that meant you had a space. No, you've got to submit it to get it. So I was like, oh, let me just double check to see that I got my title correct. And it was like, and I was devastated. I was like, this would have been
only
the one.
Chance.
It was the only one.
But now you have a few skulls, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what. I don't know. It was so.
The answer is yes.
2 guest editors.
Yes. Thank you, Art.
Yes.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah.
And I can't, I'm just so like, oh my God, I still couldn't believe it. I still couldn't believe it. And I still can't. And I'm, I got the white whale, and now what do I do with it? It's on the beach.
Yeah. Right.
Don't worry, Tim,
there's another one.
You still have more things you can strive for, Tim. It's like you've been you've been given a ticket to the cafeteria. You're still not at the cool kids table, but you're in the cafeteria. So
I'm in the I'm circling the table with my tray with only an apple on it.
I'm sure it was a mistake. They probably they accepted it, and then they just were too embarrassed to say it was a mistake.
Can I be 100% honest with you? I was in an airport. I was coming back from I don't even remember. It's not even like I'm a world traveler. It's the only trip I took last year. I was in the airport when I got the news that the guest editor from had accepted my piece, and I read it about 4 times to see if it was right. And so my partner was like, "Oh my gosh, you did it! You finally did it! You must be so happy!" And I was like, "I am. I can't believe it!" But it was from a guest editor, so it's not like then she was about to come through the phone and slice my neck open.
My husband has to do that a lot, actually, because I will minimize everything. Like I will come up with excuses why I won something, or it must be that nobody else entered, or ridiculous stuff. Yeah. And he's like, "Would you stop it?"
Well, I wonder how much of that is the imposter syndrome that is part of our title of our show. And it is a real thing.
How do you end up dealing with that? I mean, I guess maybe instead of asking that, it sort of feels like you've got to, I talk to my partner a lot. She has a wonderful acting resume. She has got the kind of acting resume that I would throw babies into water for. Like, it's very, very good.
I'm going to write that down. That is a great story idea. Thank you.
Great. Perfect.
I think it's fantastic that you're able to pick up writing prompts just from everyday speech. It's one of the things that we talked about in a previous episode that, you can go to a coffee shop and overhear a conversation. You hear a crazy line of dialogue and write that down and go, I'm going to give that a shot. See if I can come up with a character who does that. We had a refill recently where I tested out the viability of using artificial intelligence to generate
I
story.
listened to that
Oh, you
one.
did? Okay.
Yes.
What did you think of that now that you've admitted to listening to it? Because I was sheepish to even write it because I'm like, I don't use AI. I don't really want to encourage people to do it. But gosh, I mean, am I missing out on something? So what is your
Right.
opinion on the use of AI? And actually, if you could comment on, what we said, I'd be really interested.
First of all, I listened to the one you did prior to that, where with both of you, where you were kind of anti AI, right? We're not going to use this for writing, et cetera. And then
Right.
it was interesting to have your refill where you sort of came back and, in your words, sheepishly, like a little bit like, well, maybe I went too far with that. And here are some potential uses for it. I actually, I'm going to get your words wrong here, so I apologize for that. But in that refill, you talked about how you kind of judged these three different elements of whatever program it was that you were looking at, or whatever AI model. And you gave them a rating, two different ratings. One was like, was it quality?
Yeah, it was three
And
different
then one was
experiments, and one
the
was
ick factor.
exactly, it was high quality and ick. One is how
Yeah.
how good the output was, and the other one was how it made me feel.
Yeah, so I loved that so much. So one of my colleagues in my real job, his job is really to kind of be on the forefront of everything AI, and just to try to wrap his head around all of that and make sense of it for our district, right? So we can decide like, how do we handle this and what do we do? And um, so he's like all in on AI and in every way, and just here's all the great things it can do. And he's teaching these courses, and I'm taking one of his courses right now. So after I listened to that refill, I went back to him and I said, this is one of the things that I think was missing for me is I want to be able to express the ick factor. Um, like I want to be able to like say, yeah, that was really great, but it made me feel gross. Or that was really great and it didn't make me feel gross. So,
Yeah.
but like, so just to have that, that terminology for me was super helpful. And he is now going to bring that into the discussion with his larger AI group, and trying to bring that language actually
Wow.
into the conversations we have about it at school. Because as you can imagine, it's obviously fraught in the writers' world, but it's equally as fraught in the education world. So anyway, thank you. You've inspired generations of children to come.
Wow. All right. No follow up. That was perfect.
And cut.
Oh Lord. No, but
No,
yeah, I'm gonna shut up. That was great.
there was a documentary made a little while ago, and I don't know if we talked about this already, Art, in our episode on AI, but a long time ago, David Bowie and one of his people, because I guess if you're David Bowie, you have people, but they'd kind of come up with this computer program where David Bowie would just type in articles, headlines, and article titles. And the computer program would take all those words and just start spitting out random titles for him, which sort of inspired him, worked as prompts for him. I think this was sort of during the 90s, his sort of quasi Nine Inch Nailsy phase. I don't know how much further he took it on from there, but like it's interesting because it is kind of a thing. It's like a generative. Sometimes, thinking about prompts and thinking about using AI for it, it sort of feels like, well, David Bowie kind of did that, and it's David Bowie, so
it must be okay.
If David Bowie did it, I am 100% on board. But it just feels like there are just different ways to get ideas, and I know that AI, also has environmental consequences and things like that. But sometimes it just feels like whatever gets that thing going inside of you, whatever inspires you, whether it comes from someone else's work or from an AI prompt generator or from David Bowie, it just feels like it can't be wrong if it's working.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I have a problem using AI. If writers are using AI to develop ideas or just that spark, I don't see that as any different, I don't think, than I'm sitting at work and my colleague says something and I'm like, that's a great idea. Or I'm driving and I hear something on the radio and there's my idea. Like that to me that's got a low ick factor for me. Because I do smoke lung, like that isn't something that I think I need to do because I've got my prompts coming in constantly and the world is a prompt, right? So I haven't been short of ideas. Do you know the Not Quite Right prize?
No.
Competition? Mm-mm. I don't know if either of you do any of the writing competitions, or if you're into doing writing contests and stuff, but that's been such a fun, like I love it. Like it's so much fun.
Yeah, I'm super busy tinkering with my 28-year-old story, so I don't know.
Right, I don't have time for that bullshit.
I'm trying to get into head and I gotta get into head without a guest editor.
But it's gonna be awesome. You just wait. It's gonna be.
I'll be carrying it around an airport someday so that people will see me reading it. Not Quite Right. It's fun. It's out of Australia. They do a podcast as well. They do a variety of things. Like their podcast has things other than just writing, but it's mostly that. And one of the things I love about it is, so they have these, I think it's quarterly competitions, and you get a prompt and you have, 48 hours to write a story. Like they drop the prompt and then you have 48 hours, right? So it's like speed writing kind of stuff, but it's I don't know, it's creative and it's fun, and you can't have too much pressure because it's only 48 hours. So you can't write a brilliant story. And then on the podcast, they read anything that's shortlisted, they'll read aloud. And then you can also pay extra money to have your story, as they say, like torn apart on the podcast, right? And so they call them daredevils. I don't know, you pay $25, $40 or something like that. And they read your story and they talk about it for like 30, 40 minutes. And really, like brutally, honestly talk about your story. And some of these are really rough. Why did I start on this? Oh, because of AI. This is how we got all into this. So anyway, it's like it's fun to listen to those. Like I learned so much about writing just from listening to other people critique other people's stories. That's just a fascinating process. In their competition, they started out by saying no AI in any way. So you had to click the button that no AI was used. And this last time, they had it was you can use AI to generate ideas. So they were actually welcoming people to put the prompts, like the word prompt, the action prompt, into AI and get ideas of things that you could do. And I just thought that was such an interesting, like 3 months ago, it was no AI, no way, no how. And now 3 months later, it's okay in this situation. But you're not allowed to use it to generate the actual story. Right now, almost every journal or contest that I'm submitting to, like I am clicking that, you have to click that button, like, no, I've not used AI in the generation of this story, or however the wording is. And I just wonder how that will shift as people start to see AI differently.
Yeah, I used to read a lot of journalism and a lot of history books, and that was my prompt engine, back in the day.
Yeah.
I always come across something interesting and go, I want to write a story about that, or at least starting there and see where it goes. So I agree with you. I think using it specifically to generate prompts, I mean, everything's out there anyway. You're just sort of asking for something a little more specific. But the real risk, I think, is when writers and probably people who want to be writers but don't have the courage or the patience to try it for real, might lull themselves into a sense of, well, I came up with the idea for this, and I'm going to use the word lazy, but I'm trying not to be disparaging, but like some people just see really clever wording and go, oh, I want that. And then they just take it and sort of convince themselves that they wrote it. And again, not maliciously, but just because, well, it's there and I want it, so like, gimme.
Right. Yeah, it feels super slippery to me. Like it's funny because in my professional life, I use AI all the time. It's just a part of what we do now. In my writing life, I never use it. Now, my colleague would say, well, you use spell check and you use your whatever grammar program happens to be on Google Docs, and that's AI. And I'm like, yeah, but that's different. But it is a slippery, like, where's that line? You're on Google, when you're typing on Google Docs or Word or whatever, it's suggesting the end of your sentence.
Yeah.
Right. And
I
it's
mean,
like, whoa,
right.
whoa, turn that off. Stop.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, the analogy
Yeah.
there is that the spell check and Grammarly might actually be more like using Waze or Google Maps to get somewhere, but it's not driving your car. And so, if
Right,
you know,
right.
like it's basically when you say AI take the wheel,
I like that.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole thing
Yeah.
feels so icky to me that I completely stay away from it with the writing world. I don't have a problem if other people are using it for prompts, but to me, I'm still like, no, I want this to be pure.
Yeah, I'm the same
Yeah.
way, but the analogy that I always worry about, because I don't want to be this guy, right? At what point does it turn into me being this guy? At the turn of the 19th century, or turn of the 20th century, sorry, you saw the introduction of elevators the way that we currently use them, where you press a button and it takes you to the correct floor. Up until then, and really up until like the 1940s, you had elevator operators, people who would drive you to the floor that you want. And it took like 4 decades for that to really cook into the consciousness of people going, I'm not getting in a box with no driver. Are you kidding me? That's insane. But now in the 21st century, we're looking at those people like they're comically, it's like the same people who in that famous shot where they're in the theater. It's at the infancy of film, and it's that train that's coming towards the camera, and all the people in the theater like duck and freak out because they think, and we look at that and laugh, but to them it was very much the way that they thought. And so, am I that guy who's like, I'm not getting in that box with no driver? So, I mean, I'm really trying to figure out what is that inflection point at which point it's not just okay, but it's actually expected.
The world is changing super, super fast right now in a lot of ways that make me want to crawl under a rock.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that as well, because the attraction to flash fiction is one that seems to have given rise over the last 30 years. It's much more prevalent than it was, say, 30 years ago. And it's one that you seem to do exceptionally well. What is it that makes you want to stay in a short format like that rather than going for 2,000, 5,000 word stories or more?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things I've come to understand, I think I used to think of Flash as just really short stories. And I think there are some Flash stories that feel like just really short stories. But it's really a different genre. And I just like that genre. I like having to tell a story where you don't have the time to slowly build a character. You don't have the time to give context. So each word has to do that, or each sentence has to have, multiple meanings or multiple layers. So there's something more wordplay about it that I like. Yeah. I've never been good at plotting. I will never write a novel because I just, like, as soon as I try to write something longer, I start tripping over my feet and, okay, now I have to write about how she got from the living room to the kitchen. And then I have to write how, she's got to eat in here somewhere. I just get so caught up in the actual narrative movement.
Yeah.
And in Flash, those rules aren't there, which I love.
You could name the novel Everyone Starves, and that kind of accomplishes that idea.
That's right. That's a really good point.
Everyone Starves.
Tell it how it ends. Yeah. I'm going to write that down too. Everyone Starves. That's going to be my next story title. You think I'm kidding, but I did actually just write that down.
You might not need AI for a little while longer because it seems like we're coming up with a lot of good ideas for you here. So this has been helpful.
I put the art in artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
It is exciting, though, to see so much really good Flash fiction. And I mean,
it's so good.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's so much stuff out there. Oh, I hope you weren't talking about mine. That's
I was actually, yeah. I mean, not exclusively yours, but you absolutely belong in that pantheon. I mean, I'm really impressed at how well that size of a story can bring forward emotion and also curiosity. And I love, like, one thing that you said really struck me, because in your most recent published work, I think it's in The Gorge, you have this moment where a character throws a towel over a no trespassing sign. And that's very much kind of a, potentially a throwaway moment, but it very clearly says how carefree they are, how they're really kind of covering up the danger with something that isn't going to protect them. Like, it works on a lot of different levels, and it also just conveys, hey, this is a dangerous place. So, I mean, it does, and it's that kind of thing where each phrase, each sentence, or even sentence fragment, because you kind of use run-ons, I think, in that, is really well assembled to give you this full, well-rounded picture of what's happening without it taking up a lot of physical space. So it's really, really well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep going.
And on page 2,
yeah, right.
well, here's what's funny. I could do that. And it's one of the things I really like about talking with writers and really having these kinds of discussions that Tim and I have pretty regularly, and then bringing in new people, is this kind of critical eye of like, not, oh, I like the story, it was good, but like really kind of digging into why. Why did it have the reaction in me that it did? How did you accomplish that? And how can I replicate that in a future work? Do you have a reader group that you circulate your work through, or are you really working on your own?
Yeah, this is another embarrassing thing. Like, I'm terrified of a lot of humans, which isn't true in my work. Like, I have to be an extrovert at work. And so as soon as I leave work, I become this I would be a hermit if I could be, but I have to force myself to do some social things every once in a while. But I have never been able to do like an in-person writing group. Like, the last time I did that was in grad school when I did a writing workshop, and it was always horrifying. So I love Smoke Long for that reason, because it gives me those readers. And they're paid readers, right? They're joining this to do the same thing. So I listened to one of your episodes, and Art, you were talking about was this the one in the process that like made me think I should never be a writer? You have your 9-step process.
Yeah, I certainly hope it didn't discourage you from writing.
Oh my God, there's like 8 steps more than I have in my process. And I started to get really nervous, like, oh my God, I don't have a beta reader. I don't even have one. I won't show my husband my work most of the time because I'm terrified. So my beta readers, I guess, are Smoke Long, and there's an anonymity there, which is another terrifying reason to do this podcast, because it like takes a little bit of that anonymity away. Like, now you know me a little more, so it'll be really scary and getting feedback.
No,
so yeah, I don't have a group. I don't. What do I do? Is that okay?
It is. I mean, Art and I have been trading works with each other for the past 30 years, and Art has a nice group of folks that he knows as well that he trades his work with. But I never had anyone else. I have my partner. She likes reading the stuff. And then that for me was one of the reasons to join Smoke Long. I'm exactly the same way, Emily. I was very much like, one, I always felt very insecure about giving feedback. Art's very, very good at giving feedback, very, very good at being objective. I always tell people, I took creative writing. I don't need to know what a dangling participle is, So having Smoke Long was really, really nice because, and Art has commented on this too, it's immediately given me the community that I was too afraid to approach.
Yeah.
Because I know that there are a lot of people who use social media and say, hey, does anybody want to be a reader for me? And I'm like, that terrifies me to think of that.
I can tell. Yes.
Yeah. Two things about the Smoke Long workshop or other workshops that are like it is that, number one, it helps to give a community and introduces me to a lot of writers. And number two, it sort of helped me develop a language, because when I saw how other people were commenting on other stories, it sort of helped me with my vocabulary and how to put that kind of stuff, and also validate some of the things that I would feel about it, because I don't have a strong background in the that sort of textbook writing skill. It was sort of like, well, I shouldn't comment on this person's story because I don't know what I'm talking about. But then when you sort of are in this community and see other people sort of helping each other out, you're like, oh, okay, it kind of validates how I felt about other folks. And so the workshop's been very, very good. And it's very nice to meet people. And also, that's the thing, like, not to do too much of this to you today, Emily, but like when I would say something about maybe one of your pieces or somebody like Ani King or, some of the other folks that are here, and then, they say something nice about your work too. I'm like, oh, that's great. Who is this person? And you're like, I can't believe I said that to that person. I cannot believe I just said that to them. I can't believe I told them they should cut that character. You know what I mean? And so it's very, very nice that everybody was super chill. Maybe there should be a workshop where everyone's really angry and mean to each other. See how that works out.
It's called
for
an
now,
MFA program, Tim.
Yeah. I think like there are certain, I've done the workshops now like long enough in Smoke Long that there'll be certain, and you've probably experienced this March I think was a really good example where, we switched groups 4 times. And different groups have different feels to them. They're all valuable. Like there hasn't been a group yet that I've been in that I haven't gotten a lot out of, but some groups just gel. And like the first March group that we had was like, that was a magical group. And I think part of it was, first of all, everybody was super engaged, which because it was the beginning of March, we weren't exhausted and angry at the world yet. Yeah. And the second thing is because you had to do it so fast, right? Where it's every day and you're writing your story and then you're giving feedback on everybody's stories. Like you don't have time to do the old, whatever feedback sandwich thing. And I feel like as we got, especially into that week a little bit, we all started just being more direct, more honest, still kind, but able to just get right to it and say, yeah, I really love this draft, really great voice. And here are 3 places where I stumbled, or here's, this character didn't work for me yet. And like, that's the kind of feedback I want in a workshop. Like I want to know, like either what's working is fine. It's not that I don't want people to say nice things, but I want to know like why something is working. Because then I can maybe do more of that. Why I love it when people say, you should switch the order of this or chop the first 2 paragraphs. Even if I completely disagree, I like how somebody has actually thought about it enough to imagine it without those 2 paragraphs and say like, oh, that might be better. So I love that.
Yeah. And it helps the imposter syndrome in me when someone is giving me that sort of help and sort of suggesting those things. Because if someone comes along and they're like, wow, this is really good, thanks a lot. I'm like, oh, this must really be terrible.
Right, exactly. I don't even know what to say. Well, Art, I have a question. I have a question for you, Art, around this, because I don't have beta readers. And one of the main reasons for that is I'm embarrassed to ask somebody because I feel like it's a favor, right? Will you do me a favor and read this and give feedback? And do you feel like there's is it reciprocal, first of all? Like, are your beta readers someone who you're asking them to read this because you're also going to read their work? In which case that kind of negates that whole like favor thing. Are they giving you the feedback? I'm not asking my question very well. No. How is that different than because there's none of us in Smoke Long have a stake. None of us have asked the other for that feedback as a favor, if that makes sense.
It does. I do think that there is a kindness in reciprocating that is useful. But, it's really about a level of trust that you have with the person who you're asking. First, you have to respect their opinion, and they don't need to be, a high and mighty writing professor, or they can be what, they might refer to themselves as, quote, just a reader. But it's someone whose opinion you value for whatever reason. And if they are also a writer and they want to ask you the same thing, it becomes a lot easier for that to be the bargain that you strike with that person. Hey, let's help each other get better. I trust you, you trust me. Let's do this thing. And so if you've got like a paid relationship, then you're going to get back what you pay for. But, the trust there is I've given you money and you're going to give me feedback. So, I think that's a transaction that you can feel good about as well. The only ones that I think would be problematic is if you're asking someone who you don't know very well, who you haven't built trust with, to do that for you. I think then it's probably
Right.
a risk. Like this didn't happen, but let's say I go to a reading and I'm like, oh, it's Amy Tan. Oh, I love Amy Tan's work. Amy, I'm a writer too. Will you read? Like, that's absurd. And she should, crack me over the side of the head. So, but it's that trust, that rapport, that's really essential. And also you have to value the other person's opinion. So you're going to be selective. I mean, I think I would be selective about who I would choose to do that with. And look, I'll just come out on record and say, if you ever want me to read anything you're writing, I will do that in a heartbeat. I think your work.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I feel like you're asking me out.
No,
I'm writing that down.
Not at all. No, you're married. You're married. I'm married too. No, but seriously, like, and one of the things I wanted to mention is that, obviously you've gotten, a lot under your belt without having dedicated beta readers. So, like, how necessary is it? But I also hear you talking about how valuable the feedback is from Smoke Long and those folks, and how much you crave it. I mean, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but
and I did, maybe this was a beta reader that I had then with, so I had a story that was published in Ghost Parachute in April called Make Believe. And I had drafted it through Smoke Long and liked the story a lot, sent it out to 3 or 4 places, rejections. So I knew something wasn't quite right, because that's another part of my process. Like, if it gets rejected, usually once, I'm like, it's terrible, I need to rework this. But if it gets multiple rejections, that's like, oh no. So Matt Kendrick actually reached out to see if I would be interested in reading something he wrote, and then said, I would love to read something you wrote. So I sent it to him. I don't know if you know Matt Kendrick. He's unbelievable. You should follow him on all the socials if you don't know him. He's got some incredible resources, and he does workshops. And but he was such a careful reader, and he helped me make that story so much better. And I think that's the kind of thing that maybe I don't get just through the Smoke Long workshop, right? So I get that initial read, but the level, the care that he took and the time he took with the line by line reading of it made it such a better story.
Right. That's excellent.
So, I think maybe I just need to trust a little bit more and maybe build some of those relationships.